So autism focused brain, are you making these 4 mistakes? I'm getting into all that right now. Guys, what's going on? I am super obsessed with trying to get like the most function out of my brain and out of like, you know, how do I get focused? How do I get motivated? How do I stay on track? All of these things encompass basically autism brain focus, right? And my name is Dan and I have autism and ADHD, OCD and dyslexia, and I make weekly videos like this every week. So if you're new around here and you want to learn more, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And more importantly, I'm here to teach you guys and to tell you guys about 4 major factors that decrease your ability to focus. Now, we all know that autism and brain focus can be a difficulty. Why is this? Well, one of the main reasons is that autistic individuals usually have ADHD as well, right? So autistic people can hyper-focus on a specific topic of interest or a specific thing, but then also they have a tendency to have a scatter mind where you might want to go to this project, that project, this project, and you have very different things. And so what we get is this kind of like battleground between the autistic brain wanting to focus and the ADHD brain wanting to just jump from task to task. Now, what's really interesting is that the ADHD brain will also want to jump from task to task, but then focus on the new task, if that makes sense, which I find quite interesting. Like, not just interesting, like super interesting. Now, I experience this on a daily basis, and for years I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, how do I maneuver through these, you know, times and navigation? Now, I've done various videos on what happens when this moment occurs, and it's 2 parts really. One is that you have this moment of inertia. Now, I spoke a lot about inertia. I've done many videos on it. I have more videos coming out on inertia. But very simply, inertia, if we look at the Newton's law of motion, inertia is an object in motion can't deviate from that or stop. Or the opposite, which is a object which is not in motion, can't start motion or deviate from not being in motion. What on earth does that mean? If I break it down very simply, is that you could be on a task doing something, and if you want to switch task, you can't, because this moment of inertia where you've got other tasks to do, but you've got this one task you're doing right now and you're like, I can't deviate from it. Or the other reason that a lot of people find this inertia problem is when they're wanting to start something, you're sitting there like this, like, okay, I've got all these things to do and I need to start all of them, but you can't start any of them. You have this like this blockage. It's almost like a writer's block feeling, right? You know, so if anyone's an artist or a musician or a writer or something, you get to this point where you're like, I want to start something, but I can't because it's I don't know, I've got the writer block thing, which is basically this inertia. And then the other type is pathological demand avoidance. Now, I've spoken a lot about pathological demand avoidance, and it directly relates to the autism focus brain in the way that if somebody is asking, or if something, it doesn't even have to be a person, it's not even asking tasks of you or demands of you as a person, it's basically if you have things to do. It could be the fact that you need to eat lunch, you need to take a shower, you need to tidy your office, you need to do all these things, and then something else happens where somebody's like, I need you to go to the post office and post something for me. It's like too many things. It's like this demand avoidance. So you have too many demands and then you'll just avoid, you back out of it because you can't seem to manage each part of that. And it all comes down to this moment of inertia and the autism focus brain. Now, there are various things that we can do to overcome this, but there are also various mistakes that we need to kind of be aware of, because if we're doing these mistakes, we're never going to be able to overcome the inertia part. And if we don't overcome the inertia part, then we won't be able to overcome the block or the issue, right? We won't be able to increase our autism focused brain because we're kind of sitting there looking at a blank wall. Okay, so I'm going to go through them step by step. And the first one is the lack of good sleep hygiene. Now, sleep hygiene is really interesting because a lot of people don't get enough sleep anyway, right? I think the average person in the world sleeps about 5 to 6 hours a night, when we should be getting between 7 and 8 hours a night, right? And that's like optimum sleep. And why this is important is because it's allowing time for your cells to regenerate, allowing time for your body to rest and regenerate, and your muscles and your mind. Also, it allows for your conscious mind to kind of just debrief a little bit. It's kind of like how dreams happen. You know, you're storing all of these things and then you're making up scenarios in your head about dreams. But you're storing all the thoughts from the day, which kind of gives you a little bit of a refresh or a defrag. Do you remember that from old computers? I mean, defrag my computer. It was just like... Anyway, but the cool thing is, if you have good sleep hygiene and you prioritize sleep hygiene so you have optimum sleep, then you'll be able to increase your focus when you're during your waking hours, right? And there are many ways that we can increase sleep hygiene, like, you know, having a bedtime routine where we kind of like dim the lights, we have tea or something that calms you down, we have little to no screen time, 20 minutes before going to bed. And when we do go to bed, the area in which we sleep in is not triggering. It's not sensory kind of triggering, and it's very calming. You know, it's made to sleep in, not just like made to just, I don't know, have bright paintings on the wall. You know, something that's a calming environment. That would be practicing good sleep hygiene and making sure we get at least 7 hours of sleep in. Because 7 hours of sleep is going to allow your brain to recharge, relax. So when you're during your wakeful hours, you'll have more like conscious energy to focus on those things. Which again, when you think about pathological demand avoidance, if you haven't got the headspace to prioritize the task, you're going to come to this moment of inertia. Super dope. Okay, so number 2 is lack of water intake. Oh my goodness, and that reminds me, gotta check my water. Okay, so many people are dehydrated. Actually, I'd say most people are dehydrated. Why? Because we're never really told that water is like something that we should prioritize. And why is that? Because we have so many nice beverages. We've got like coffee and soda and juices and stuff. And I get it. A lot of people don't even, you know, you'll have maybe a drink of coffee in the morning and then you won't drink anything then until lunchtime. But what we should be doing is we should be having regular intake of water, because our brain is made up of about 70% water, right? So if you're thinking about your brain needs water all the time, and if it's starved of water, it's dehydrated, it's not going to function at its optimum level. So you're not going to be able to focus and do those things that you need to do if your brain isn't engaging in the right tasks, because it hasn't got the right fluid in it. You know, you're feeding it with coffee and like, I don't know, fruit juice, but it's not, there are bits of water in it. Yeah, I get it, you know, it's water and everything, but that's not how we do it. So you need to make sure that you're drinking enough water during the day to stay hydrated, to keep your brain hydrated, to keep your mind sharp and focused. This is really key. This is like, I can't stress how important this is. It's so important that I have a rule that every time I look at my water bottle, I have to take a drink, because otherwise I'll forget. So always make sure my water bottle is in sight, right? Which is very important. So hydrate yourself. This is a must, a priority. Okay, number 3 is lack of list building. Oh my goodness. Like, I love list building, because when you build lists, and it's not like having, one of the biggest pitfalls of autistic individuals is we'll have a to-do list of to-do lists, and then a stack of to-do lists that we never get around to doing because we have this moment of inertia. We can make to-do lists until the cows come home. We have no idea how to execute them and how to stay on top of all the to-do lists that we've created or we've made, because we're in this kind of rut of inertia, right? However, there is a strategy to overcome this and how to actually write to-do lists in a way where actually work for you. Now, the first thing to do is you write down a list of all of the things that you need to do, right? So, I don't know, you could like, we'll just start today. We go, okay, today, it's Thursday. I have to write down a bunch of stuff. Do. All of those things. There's 10 things on this list, right? And one of the things you'll notice as well is that your to-do list or your mental to-do list isn't anywhere near as big as your actual to-do list. Because like, you have all of this stuff going on in your head that seems huge, but when you actually write it down on paper, you've got like 10 things, maybe. You might only have 5 things. And then you look at that and you say, okay, well, which one of those things should take priority? And how do I know this? How do I know which one takes priority? Well, it's the thing that if I do that thing, or if that thing is completed first, that's going to give me the most relief straight away. So if you're like, I need to buy a new car. Okay, how do you buy a new car? Well, I need to save up for a new car, because the car will get me to work, and it'll be a lot of stress alleviated for me because I want to pay for taxis and buses and stuff. So, okay, that's priority number 1. So you put it onto another list. Okay, buy a car. Boom. So we got buy a car. What are the steps taken? This is how we do it. We take the to-do item and then we write down a list of steps that we need to take to increase ourselves towards that potential of completing that task, which is basically like saying, what are the steps we need to do to get that done? First thing is I need to book extra hours in work, or I need to do a garage sale, or sell some stuff on eBay to gain a little bit more capital so that I have money to put a down payment on a car. Then the next thing I do is I look for cars online, look for car dealers and look at which ones suit me. Then I book a dealership visit. Then I go and look at the cars, and I put the down payment on it, sort out the insurance, take the car home. That's how you do list building, and that's how you complete tasks on a list. And nobody does it this way, and that's how you do it. If you do that every single time you need to do something, you'll beam like the sun. Effective. Okay, number 4 is probably the most impactful one for me. This is me in a nutshell. This is called doom scrolling, right? So we're all doing it, right? We're just sitting down, we've finished eating our dinner, we're just like, you know, going through Instagram and just scrolling. We're just aimlessly scrolling on Instagram. Well, what does this do? This actually causes a mental blockade in our life, right? Where we're rather than focusing on something that's important, we're focusing on something that is completely irrelevant. We're just scrolling on Instagram and looking at like pictures of cats and dogs and people's sandwiches. It's like, what are we doing? Like those things aren't good, but we're putting focused energy on something that does not improve our life or condition towards our potential, right? Which is basically saying we're wasting our time. And people do this all the time. And the term is doom scrolling. We call it doom scrolling because basically most of the time you'll be scrolling past and be sucked into stuff that's negative, right? So what I try to do is that I replaced doom scrolling with an app called Deep Stash. Now, Deep Stash is a really interesting app. This is not sponsored or anything. I'm just telling you which ones I use. Basically, it just... you type in what you like, or podcasts listen to, what books you like, and it gives you little quotes from them every single day, and you can just go through and check them out. So if you want to scroll on something that's going to give you some potential. Scroll on something that's going to urge you towards learning, because that is how we do it. Or buy an audio, buy an ebook or something like that, where you can scroll through something on your phone. You get that pleasure of scrolling through something on your phone, but it's actually increasing your potential towards learning something, because when we learn, when we read, when we understand, when we're not just doom scrolling, our mind expands, which means that it gives us more space. It increases our potential towards being able to focus, being able to do all those things. That being said, if you have anything to add, pop it in a comment down below, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.